Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stood outside the grand corporate building. At 28, he had seen enough violence in his life to last several lifetimes. After serving 2 tours in Afghanistan, he returned home to find his old neighborhood consumed by gang wars and poverty. His military pension wasn't enough to support his sick mother and younger sister, so he took whatever security jobs he could find. Today was different. Today he was assigned to protect Richard Blackwood, the billionaire CEO of Blackwood Industries. Marcus had heard the stories: kidnapping attempts, death threats, corporate espionage. Rich people problems, he thought to himself. But money was money, and this job paid better than guarding nightclubs or shopping malls. Richard Blackwood emerged from the building at exactly 6:30 p.m., just as his schedule indicated. He was a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to calculate everything around him. Marcus fell into step beside him, scanning the crowded street for potential threats. "You're new," Richard observed, his voice carrying the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Yes, sir. Marcus Johnson. I'll be your security detail for the evening." Richard nodded curtly and slipped into the back seat of his black Mercedes. Marcus took his position in the front passenger seat next to the driver. The car pulled away from the curb and merged into the heavy downtown traffic. 20 minutes into the drive, Marcus noticed something wrong. A white van had been following them since they left the building, always staying 2 cars behind. When their driver changed lanes, the van changed lanes. When they turned, the van turned. Marcus's military training kicked in immediately. "Sir, we have a problem," Marcus said quietly, his hand moving instinctively toward his concealed weapon. Richard looked up from his phone. "What kind of problem?" "We're being followed. White van, license plate starts with GHK. They've been on us since downtown." The driver, an older man named Peterson, glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. "Should I call for backup?" Before anyone could answer, the van suddenly accelerated and pulled alongside their car. The side door slid open, revealing 3 men in black masks. One held an assault rifle. "Get down," Marcus shouted. The first shots shattered the rear window. Richard dove to the floor as Marcus threw himself over the back seat, shielding the CEO with his own body. Glass rained down on them as more bullets peppered the car. Peterson tried to accelerate, but a second vehicle, a black SUV, blocked their path from the front. They were trapped in a deadly crossfire on a busy city street. Innocent pedestrians screamed and ran for cover. Marcus felt a sharp pain in his left shoulder as a bullet grazed him, but he didn't move. His body remained a human shield between Richard and the attackers. "Stay down, sir. Don't move no matter what happens." The attack lasted only 90 seconds, but it felt like hours. When the shooting stopped, Marcus heard car doors slamming and engines roaring away. The kidnappers had fled, realizing their plan had failed thanks to Marcus's quick thinking and sacrifice. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus slowly lifted his head, blood trickling from his shoulder wound. "Mr. Blackwood, are you hurt?" Richard emerged from beneath Marcus, his expensive suit torn and dirty but his body unharmed. His face was pale with shock, but his eyes showed something Marcus hadn't expected: genuine gratitude and respect. "You saved my life," Richard said simply. "You didn't even hesitate." Marcus winced as he sat up, pressing his hand against his wounded shoulder. "It's my job, sir." "No," Richard replied firmly. "Your job was to escort me safely. You chose to use your body as a shield. There's a difference." Police cars and ambulances surrounded them within minutes. As paramedics treated Marcus's wound, he watched Richard speaking urgently with detectives and FBI agents. The CEO kept glancing over at Marcus with an expression the young veteran couldn't quite read. Later, as Marcus sat in the hospital emergency room getting stitched up, he reflected on the day's events. He had acted on instinct, the same instincts that had kept him alive in combat zones. But something about Richard Blackwood's reaction troubled him. The man had seemed genuinely surprised that someone would risk their life for him. "Mr. Johnson?" A nurse interrupted his thoughts. "There's someone here to see you." Richard Blackwood walked into the treatment room, having traded his torn suit for casual clothes. He looked somehow smaller without his corporate armor, more human. "How are you feeling?" Richard asked. "I'll live. Bullet just grazed me. I'll be back to work in a few days." Richard sat down in the plastic chair beside the hospital bed. "I want to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." "Why did you do it?" You barely know me. Most people in your position would have focused on their own safety. Marcus considered the question carefully. In Afghanistan, we had a saying, you don't leave anyone behind. Doesn't matter if they're your best friend or someone you just met. When bullets start flying, you protect the person next to you. It becomes automatic after a while. Richard was quiet for a long moment. I've had bodyguards for 15 years, Marcus. Good men, well-trained, expensive. But none of them ever threw themselves on top of me to stop bullets. They would have returned fire, called for backup, done their jobs professionally. But you made it personal. Like I said, sir, it's just instinct. Richard stood up, extending his hand. Well, your instinct saved my life tonight. I won't forget that. As Richard left the hospital, Marcus closed his eyes and tried to rest. He had no idea that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. The billionaire CEO had been moved by more than just Marcus's bravery. He had been reminded of something he thought he had lost long ago. The knowledge that there were still people in the world who would sacrifice everything for a stranger, expecting nothing in return. 3 days after the shooting, Marcus returned to his small apartment in the east side of the city. His left arm was in a sling, and the doctors had given him strong painkillers, but he was alive and grateful. The neighborhood looked the same as always. Cracked sidewalks, graffiti-covered walls, and the constant sound of traffic from the nearby highway. He climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor, keys jingling in his good hand. Before he could unlock his door, it swung open. His mother, Elena Johnson, stood there with tears in her eyes and worry lines etched deep into her face. Marcus, thank God you're home, she said, pulling him into a careful hug that avoided his injured shoulder. At 52, Elena looked older than her years. 12-hour shifts at the textile factory and constant worry about her son had taken their toll. I'm fine, Mom. Just a scratch. Elena stepped back and studied his face. I saw it on the news. They said there was a shooting, that a bodyguard was hurt protecting some rich businessman. I knew it was you before they even said your name. Marcus walked into their modest apartment, which Elena kept spotlessly clean despite its worn furniture and faded wallpaper. His teenage sister, Carmen, was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. At 16, she was already showing signs of the intelligence and determination that would take her far from this neighborhood if given the chance. Hey, hero, Carmen said with a smirk, though Marcus could see the relief in her eyes. Mom has been glued to the TV for 3 days, convinced you were dying in some hospital. I wasn't dying. And I'm not a hero. I was just doing my job. Elena brought him a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. The news said you threw yourself in front of bullets to protect that man. That's not just doing a job, Marcus. That's being willing to die for a stranger. Marcus sipped his coffee and looked around the small apartment. The rent was 3 months behind, he knew, though Elena tried to hide their financial struggles. The refrigerator made strange noises. The heating barely worked, and Carmen's school shoes had holes that she covered with tape. This was why he took dangerous jobs, and so his family could survive. How's your treatment going, Mom? He asked, changing the subject. Elena's face tightened. I missed 2 appointments while you were in the hospital. I couldn't concentrate on anything except worrying about you. Dr. Martinez wants to increase my medication, but... She gestured helplessly at their surroundings. Marcus knew what she meant. The cancer treatments were expensive, even with insurance. They had been slowly drowning in medical bills for months. His security job paid enough to cover rent and food, but not much else. That evening, Carmen knocked on his bedroom door. Can I come in? Marcus was lying on his narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Sure. Carmen sat on the edge of the bed, her expression more serious than usual. I got accepted to the summer program at the university. Full scholarship for advanced math and science classes. Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt in days. Carmen, that's incredible. You work so hard for this. There's just one problem. I need money for books and supplies. About $800. The smile faded from Marcus's face. $800 might as well have been $8,000. After paying for his mother's medications and keeping food on the table, there was never anything left over. How long do we have? He asked. 2 weeks. If I can't pay by then, they'll give my spot to someone else. Marcus stared at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of some distant country. Carmen was brilliant, the kind of smart that could change her entire life if she got the right opportunities. But opportunities cost money, and money was something they never had enough of. Later that night, after his mother and sister had gone to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and spread out their bills. Rent, utilities, groceries, medications, Carmen's school supplies. The numbers never added up. No matter how he arranged them, there was always more month left at the end of the money. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Johnson, this is Richard Blackwood. I hope you're recovering well. I'd like to discuss something important with you. Would you be available to meet tomorrow afternoon?" R.B. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. He had assumed his brief encounter with the billionaire CEO was over. Rich people had short attention spans when it came to the hired help, he figured. But apparently Richard Blackwood was different. He typed back, "Yes, sir. What time and where?" The response came quickly. "My office, 2 p.m. Ask for me at the front desk." Marcus set down the phone and looked around the small apartment. His mother was coughing in her sleep again, a side effect of the chemotherapy. Carmen's textbooks were stacked on the counter, borrowed from the library because they couldn't afford to buy them. This was his reality, a constant struggle to keep his family's heads above water. He had no idea why Richard Blackwood wanted to see him again. Maybe there would be another security job, hopefully one that paid better, or maybe the CEO just wanted to thank him properly and then disappear back into his world of luxury and privilege. Marcus touched his wounded shoulder and winced. The doctor said he would have full mobility back within a few weeks, but for now, even simple movements were painful. He wondered if he was even fit for security work anymore. What if his reaction time was permanently affected? What if he couldn't pass the physical requirements for future jobs? As he turned off the kitchen light and headed to bed, Marcus tried not to think about the bills piling up or his sister's missed opportunity. He tried not to think about his mother's frightened face when she heard about the shooting. Instead, he focused on the only thing that mattered. He was alive. His family was safe, and tomorrow was another day to figure things out. He had no way of knowing that in less than 24 hours, his life would change in ways that would seem impossible to someone from his background. Richard Blackwood had spent the last 3 days thinking about more than just gratitude. He had been making plans, the kind of plans that billionaires make when they encounter something rare and valuable. And Marcus Johnson, the veteran who had thrown himself in front of bullets without hesitation, was about to discover just how valuable one act of selfless courage could be. Marcus stood outside the Blackwood Industries Tower at 1:50 p.m., adjusting his sling nervously. He had worn his best clothes, a clean button-down shirt and his only pair of dress pants, though they were starting to show wear at the knees. The massive glass building stretched 40 stories into the sky, a monument to wealth and power that made him feel small and out of place. The lobby was marble and gold, filled with people in expensive suits moving with purpose. Marcus approached the reception desk where a perfectly groomed woman looked up at him with polite confusion. "I'm here to see Mr. Blackwood. Marcus Johnson." Her expression shifted immediately. "Of course, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Blackwood is expecting you." She handed him a visitor's badge and pointed toward a private elevator. "Top floor, penthouse level. Someone will meet you there." The elevator ride felt endless. Marcus watched the city shrink below him through the glass walls, wondering what this meeting was really about. Maybe Richard wanted to offer him a full-time position as a bodyguard. That would be good. Steady pay, probably better than his current gig work. But something in the CEO's text message had suggested this was about more than just another job. The elevator doors opened into a reception area that looked more like a luxury hotel than an office. A woman in her 30s, dressed in an impeccable business suit, greeted him with a warm smile. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Sarah Chen, Mr. Blackwood's executive assistant. He's waiting for you in his office." She led him down a hallway lined with expensive artwork and through massive wooden doors. Richard Blackwood's office was larger than Marcus's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Richard stood up from behind his desk, extending his hand. He looked different from the shaken man in the hospital, back in his element, commanding and confident. "Marcus, thank you for coming. Please sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water?" "I'm fine, thank you, sir." Richard settled into the chair across from him rather than behind his desk, a gesture that made the conversation feel more personal. "How's your shoulder?"
"Healing well."
"I should be back to full capacity in a couple of weeks." "Good. I want to talk to you about something and I need you to hear me out completely before you respond. Can you do that? Marcus nodded, though a knot was forming in his stomach. Richard leaned forward. I've been in business for 30 years, Marcus. I've built companies, made billions of dollars, employed thousands of people. In all that time, I've learned to recognize value when I see it. And what you did 3 nights ago, that was invaluable. Sir, I was just doing my job. Let me finish, Richard said gently. I've done some research on you. Military service, 2 tours in Afghanistan, decorated veteran. You came home to a neighborhood that most people would flee from, but you stayed to take care of your family. Your mother is fighting cancer. Your sister is a straight A student with incredible potential. You work multiple security jobs just to keep your heads above water. Marcus felt exposed, as if this wealthy stranger could see directly into his life's struggles. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know about people who matter to me. And you matter to me, Marcus, because in a moment of crisis, you showed me something I rarely see in my world. Someone who acts without calculating the personal cost. Richard stood up and walked to the window. I want to offer you something. Not just a job, but an opportunity to completely change your life and your family's future. Marcus's mouth went dry. What kind of opportunity? Richard turned back to face him. I want you to become my head of personal security. Not just a bodyguard, but the person responsible for protecting everything I care about. My family, my businesses, my interests. It's a position of enormous trust and responsibility. Sir, I'm flattered, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like that. I'm just a guy from the East Side who knows how to handle himself in a fight. Richard smiled. You're much more than that, and we both know it. But let me tell you what this position entails, and then you can decide. He returned to his chair and pulled out a leather folder. The salary would be $250,000 per year, plus bonuses, full medical benefits for you and your family, including coverage for your mother's cancer treatments, a housing allowance that would allow you to move your family to a safe neighborhood with good schools. Marcus felt dizzy. That was more money than he had ever imagined making in his entire life. There's more, Richard continued. Part of the compensation package includes a college fund for your sister, full tuition, room and board at any university she chooses, and there would be opportunities for advancement. I'm planning to expand my security operations, and I'd want you to help build that division. Marcus stared at the folder, unable to speak. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a complete transformation of his family's circumstances. Why me? He managed to ask. You could hire anyone. Ex-Secret Service agents, former military officers with much more experience than me. Richard was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Experience can be taught, Marcus. Equipment can be bought, but character? Integrity? The willingness to sacrifice yourself for someone else without hesitation? Those things can't be purchased at any price. And that's what I need. Someone I can trust completely. Someone who will protect what matters to me the way you protected me that night. Marcus thought about his mother's medical bills, about Carmen's lost opportunity for the summer program, about their apartment with its broken heater and leaking ceiling. This offer could solve all of those problems and more. There would be travel involved, Richard continued. International trips, long hours sometimes. But I understand you have family obligations and we would work around those. I'm not looking for someone to give up their life for this job. I'm looking for someone whose life I can help make better. Marcus looked out the window at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, his mother was probably at work despite feeling sick from chemotherapy. Carmen was probably in class dreaming of a future she couldn't afford to pursue. I need to think about this, sir. It's a lot to process. Of course. Take your time. But Marcus? Richard's voice became serious. I'm not offering this because I feel sorry for you or because I want to play the generous billionaire. I'm offering this because I believe you're exactly the person I need. You saved my life and now I'd like to help save yours. As Marcus left the building 30 minutes later, his head was spinning. The folder Richard had given him contained detailed job descriptions, benefit summaries, and salary information that seemed too good to be true. But it was real. Richard Blackwood, one of the wealthiest men in the country, was offering him a chance to escape the cycle of poverty that had trapped his family for generations. The question was whether he was brave enough to take it. Marcus sat at the kitchen table with the leather folder spread out in front of him, reading the job offer for the 4th time. The numbers still seemed unreal. $250,000 a year, full medical coverage, housing allowance, college tuition for Carmen. He kept waiting for the catch, the fine print that would reveal this was too good to be true. Elena was cooking dinner at the stove, stealing glances at her son. She could sense something important had happened, but Marcus hadn't said much since returning from his meeting with Richard Blackwood. Carmen was at the table doing homework, but she kept looking up at the mysterious folder with curious eyes. "Mom, can you sit down for a minute?" Marcus finally said. "Carmen, you too. I need to tell you both something." Elena turned off the burner and joined them at the table, wiping her hands on her apron. Her face showed the fatigue of someone fighting a battle on multiple fronts. Against cancer, against poverty, against the constant worry about her children's futures. "What's this about, Marcus?" she asked. Marcus took a deep breath. "Mr. Blackwood offered me a job today. A real job, not just security work. He wants me to be his head of personal protection." Carmen looked up from her textbook. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means I would be responsible for keeping him and his family safe. Travel with him, coordinate his security, manage other bodyguards. It's a big responsibility." Elena frowned. "That sounds dangerous, Marcus. More dangerous than what you're already doing." "Maybe. But Mom, the money." Marcus slid the salary information across the table. "Look at this." Elena picked up the paper and her eyes widened. She read it twice, then looked at Marcus as if he was playing a cruel joke. "This can't be right. This says $250,000. It's right, plus benefits. Full medical coverage for all of us, which means your cancer treatments would be completely covered. No more choosing between medicine and groceries." Carmen leaned over to look at the papers. "Oh my God, Marcus. This is life-changing money." "There's more." Marcus pulled out another document. "He's offering to pay for your college education, Carmen. Any school you want, full tuition and expenses." Carmen's homework fell to the floor as she stared at him. "Are you serious? Any school? MIT, Harvard, Stanford, wherever you can get accepted. He believes in investing in your potential." Elena was quiet, studying the paperwork with the careful attention of someone who had learned to read every word of important documents. "What's the catch, Marcus? Rich people don't give away this kind of money without wanting something major in return." Marcus had been asking himself the same question. "He says he needs someone he can trust completely. Someone who will protect him the way I did during the shooting. He thinks I have character that can't be bought. But why you specifically? Surely there are more qualified people available." Marcus remembered Richard's words about character versus experience. He said experience can be taught, but integrity can't be purchased. He wants someone who will put his safety above their own without hesitation. Elena set down the papers and looked directly at her son. "Marcus, this man is offering to solve all our problems. Every single one. But I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Is this what you want to do with your life, or are you just doing it for us?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He had been so focused on what this job could do for his family that he hadn't really considered what it meant for him personally. "I don't know, Mom. I've been thinking about survival for so long that I'm not sure I remember what wanting something feels like." Carmen reached across and touched his uninjured arm. "Marcus, you've been taking care of us since Dad left. You gave up your own dreams to make sure we had food and a roof over our heads. Maybe it's time someone took care of you for a change." "But this job could be dangerous," Elena repeated. "What if something happens to you? What if next time you're not so lucky?" Marcus thought about the bullets flying 3 nights ago, about the split-second decision to throw himself over Richard Blackwood. "Mom, every security job has risks, but this one has rewards that could change everything for us. Carmen could become an engineer or a doctor. You could get the best cancer treatment available. We could live in a safe neighborhood where you don't have to worry about walking to the store after dark." Elena was crying now, tears of exhaustion and hope mixed together. "I just want you to be safe, Marcus." "I can't lose you." Marcus reached out and took her hand. "You're not going to lose me. If anything, this job might be safer than what I'm doing now. Mr. Blackwood has resources, the best equipment, trained teams, intelligence networks. I wouldn't be going into dangerous situations alone anymore." Carmen was reading through the college benefit information with growing excitement. "Marcus, with this program I could study biomedical engineering. I could work on developing new cancer treatments. Maybe I could help find better ways to help people like Mom." Elena smiled through her tears. "You want to cure cancer now? Why not? If I can get the education I need, If I can work with the best researchers, Marcus taking this job could literally save lives someday. Marcus felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about his mother's health, his sister's future, and the opportunity to break the cycle of poverty that had defined their family for generations. "There's one more thing," he said quietly. "Mr. Blackwood wants an answer soon. If I take the job, I'd start next week. We'd need to be ready to move quickly." Elena wiped her eyes and sat up straighter. "Move where?" He mentioned a housing allowance. "We could find a place in a better neighborhood, closer to good hospitals for your treatment and better schools for Carmen." The three of them sat in silence for several minutes, each contemplating what this opportunity meant. Finally, Elena spoke. "Marcus, you saved a stranger's life without thinking about the consequences. You've been saving our lives every day for years, working dangerous jobs and sacrificing your own future to take care of us. If you think this is the right choice, then I trust your judgment." Carmen nodded emphatically. "I think you should take it. Not just for us, but for yourself too. You deserve something good in your life." Marcus looked around their small, worn apartment, at the water-stained ceiling, the old furniture, the stack of medical bills on the counter. Then he imagined his mother getting the best cancer treatment available, Carmen studying at a top university, and all of them living without the constant stress of financial insecurity. "Okay," he said finally. "I'm going to call Mr. Blackwood and accept his offer." Elena squeezed his hand. "Are you sure?" Marcus thought about Richard Blackwood's words, that he was offering this job not out of pity, but because he believed Marcus was the right person for it. Maybe it was time to start believing in himself the way this billionaire stranger seemed to believe in him. "Yes, Mom, I'm sure. It's time for our luck to change." Marcus called Richard Blackwood that evening and accepted the position. Within 48 hours, his life became a whirlwind of activity that left his head spinning. Richard hadn't been joking about moving quickly. He approached Marcus's new employment the same way he approached business deals, with efficiency and unlimited resources. On his first official day, Marcus arrived at Blackwood Industries at 7 a.m. sharp, wearing a new suit that Richard's assistant had arranged to be delivered and tailored to his measurements. He felt like he was wearing someone else's life. "Good morning, Marcus." Richard greeted him in his office. "Ready for your orientation?" The next 6 hours were unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. He was introduced to a security team he didn't know existed. 12 highly trained professionals who handled everything from cybersecurity to advanced reconnaissance. There was James Martinez, a former Secret Service agent who would be Marcus's second-in-command. Sarah Kim, a tech specialist who could monitor threats from anywhere in the world. David Chen, a former Navy SEAL who specialized in protective details. "This is impressive, sir," Marcus said as they toured the security center hidden on the building's 38th floor. "I had no idea you had this kind of operation." Richard smiled. "Most people don't, that's by design. But Marcus, this is all going to be your responsibility now. These people will report to you. You'll make the decisions about my safety and my family's security." The weight of that responsibility was staggering. Marcus was looking at millions of dollars worth of equipment and some of the most qualified security professionals in the country, and they were going to be following his orders. "Sir, I have to ask, are you sure about this? These people have decades more experience than I do." James Martinez, who was standing nearby, spoke up. "Mr. Johnson, we've all read the report about the shooting. What you did took guts and quick thinking. Experience is valuable, but instincts like yours can't be taught." Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into learning everything he could about executive protection, threat assessment, and security coordination. He studied Richard's schedule, learned about his business interests, and identified potential vulnerabilities. The other team members helped without any resentment, recognizing that Marcus's appointment came from Richard's personal trust rather than political maneuvering. Meanwhile, his family's life was transforming at an equally rapid pace. Elena had been enrolled in an experimental cancer treatment program at the city's most prestigious hospital. The new therapy was expensive and cutting edge, the kind of treatment that had previously been completely out of reach. "Marcus, I feel better than I have in months," she told him over dinner at their old apartment. "The doctors say the new medication is targeting the cancer cells more precisely. They're optimistic about my prognosis." Carmen had been accepted to the summer university program she had thought was lost forever. But more than that, College admissions counselors from top schools were suddenly interested in meeting with her. Word had somehow spread through academic networks about a brilliant young woman with unlimited educational funding behind her. "I got a call from MIT today," Carmen said excitedly. "They want me to visit the campus and meet with their biomedical engineering faculty." "Can you believe it, MIT?" But the biggest change was yet to come. 3 weeks after Marcus started his new job, Richard approached him with another proposal. "Marcus, I've found a house I think you and your family would like. It's in Riverside Heights. Good neighborhood, excellent schools. Close to the hospital where your mother is receiving treatment." Riverside Heights was a community Marcus had only driven through before, never imagining he could afford to live there. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained homes, the kind of place where children played safely in front yards and parents didn't worry about gunshots in the night. "Sir, the housing allowance you mentioned, how much are we talking about?" "Let's go look at the house and then we'll discuss the details." The house was a 3-bedroom colonial with a small yard, a 2-car garage, and large windows that filled the rooms with natural light. It was modest by Riverside Heights standards but felt like a mansion to Marcus. Elena walked through the rooms with tears in her eyes, touching the walls as if she couldn't believe they were real. "The rent would be covered entirely as part of your benefits package," Richard explained as they stood in the living room. Along with utilities and basic maintenance, Marcus felt overwhelmed by the generosity. "Mr. Blackwood, this is too much. The salary alone was enough to change our lives." Richard shook his head. "Marcus, you need to understand something. The night you saved my life, you didn't just stop bullets. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, that there are still people in this world who act from pure motives. That's worth more to me than you can possibly imagine." That weekend, Marcus and his family moved into their new home. Neighbors came by to introduce themselves and welcome them to the community. Elena was invited to join a book club. Carmen discovered that her new school had one of the best science programs in the state. As Marcus stood in their new living room that first evening, watching his mother arranging flowers in a vase and his sister studying at a real desk instead of the kitchen table, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. His phone buzzed with a text from Richard. "How does it feel to be home?" Marcus typed back, "Like a dream I don't want to wake up from." "It's not a dream, Marcus. It's what happens when good people get the opportunities they deserve. Get some rest. We have a busy week ahead." Marcus looked around the comfortable, safe home where his family would no longer worry about basic survival. Elena's medical treatments were covered. Carmen had a clear path to any college she could get into. The constant stress that had defined their lives for years was gone, replaced by hope and possibility. But this was just the beginning. Marcus was about to discover that working for a billionaire came with surprises that went far beyond salary and benefits. Richard Blackwood had been impressed by Marcus's character, but he was about to be amazed by his potential. The real transformation was just getting started. 6 months after that life-changing night, Marcus stood at his bedroom window watching the sunrise paint the quiet streets of Riverside Heights in golden light. It was 6 a.m. and he was preparing for another day as head of security for one of the most powerful men in the country. But first he wanted to savor this moment of peace in the home that still felt too good to be true. Elena was in the kitchen making breakfast, humming softly as she worked. Her latest medical tests had shown remarkable improvement. The experimental treatment was working better than anyone had dared hope. She had gained weight, her color had returned, and for the first time in 2 years, she was making plans for the future, instead of just surviving each day. Carmen was already up and studying for her early admission exams to MIT. Her summer program had gone so well that the university was fast-tracking her application process. At 17, she was already taking college-level courses and working on research projects that could someday revolutionize cancer treatment. Marcus's phone buzzed with his daily schedule from Sarah. Chen. Today would be busy. Richard had meetings with international investors, followed by a charity gala in the evening. As head of security, Marcus would coordinate every detail, from advanced reconnaissance of the venues to managing the protective detail. As he was getting dressed, Marcus noticed unusual activity outside. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up across the street, followed by another luxury car. Then another. Within minutes, the normally quiet residential street was lined with expensive vehicles. Bentleys, Maseratis, Rolls-Royces, and cars Marcus couldn't even identify but knew cost more than most people's houses. His phone rang. It was Richard. "Marcus, are you looking out your window right now?" "Yes, sir." "What's going on? Is there a security threat?" Richard's voice carried a warmth Marcus had learned to associate with the billionaire's more personal moments. "No threat. Quite the opposite, actually. Do you remember what today is?" Marcus thought for a moment. "It's the 6-month anniversary of the shooting." "Exactly. 6 months since you threw yourself in front of bullets to save a stranger's life. I wanted to mark the occasion appropriately." Marcus watched as more luxury cars arrived, drivers getting out and standing respectfully beside their vehicles. Neighbors were emerging from their houses, staring in amazement at the incredible display of wealth that had materialized on their quiet street. "Sir, I don't understand. What is all this?" "Look closer at the cars, Marcus." "Really look at them." Marcus studied the vehicles more carefully. Each one had a small placard in the front window. Even from his second-floor vantage point, he could make out some of the text: Johnson Family Medical Foundation, Carmen Johnson Educational Trust, Elena Johnson Cancer Research Fund. His hands began to shake as the magnitude of what he was seeing hit him. "Mr. Blackwood, what have you done?" Richard's voice was gentle but firm. "I've done what any reasonable person would do when someone saves their life. I've tried to repay the debt appropriately." A knock at the front door interrupted Marcus's stunned silence. Elena called up the stairs. "Marcus, there's a man here with some papers for you." Marcus ran downstairs, still in shock. A distinguished gentleman in an expensive suit stood at their door holding a leather briefcase. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Robert Williams, Mr. Blackwood's attorney. I have some documents that require your signature." Elena and Carmen gathered around as Mr. Williams spread papers across their dining room table. The legal language was complex, but the basic meaning was clear. Richard Blackwood had established 3 separate foundations in their family's name, each funded with millions of dollars. The medical foundation will provide cutting-edge cancer treatment to families who can't afford it, Mr. Williams explained. The educational trust will fund scholarships for deserving students from disadvantaged backgrounds. The research fund will support development of new cancer therapies. Carmen was reading over the documents with wide eyes. "This says the research fund has an initial endowment of $50 million. That's correct. Miss Johnson, Mr. Blackwood wanted to ensure that the work would continue in perpetuity, regardless of economic conditions or changes in government funding." Marcus sank into a chair, overwhelmed. Why would he do this? "I was just doing my job," Mr. Williams smiled. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to tell you something. He said that for 30 years, he's been wealthy enough to buy almost anything he wanted. But until 6 months ago, he had never encountered something truly priceless. Someone willing to sacrifice their life for a stranger without any expectation of reward. He said that kind of character inspired him to be better than he had been." Elena was crying as she read through the foundation documents. "Marcus, do you understand what this means? We can help other families going through what we went through. No one will have to choose between rent money and cancer treatment." Outside, more cars continued to arrive. Marcus could see news vans pulling up at the end of the street. Word was spreading about the incredible display of generosity happening in their quiet neighborhood. His phone rang again. "Richard, Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Anything." "Sir?" "I need you to accept this gift without guilt or obligation. You saved my life, and in doing so, you reminded me that wealth without purpose is meaningless. These foundations will save thousands of lives over the coming decades. That's your real legacy. Not the night you stopped bullets, but the lives that will be saved because of your character." Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the street lined with luxury vehicles, each representing millions of dollars dedicated to helping people like his family. Neighbors were gathering, pointing and taking pictures, but their expressions weren't envious. They were proud. Proud that something this extraordinary was happening in their community. Proud that one of their neighbors had inspired such generosity. "Mr. Blackwood, I don't know what to say. Say you'll continue to be the man you've always been. Say you'll help me use these resources to make a difference. And say you'll never doubt that good people deserve good things." As Marcus hung up the phone, Carmen rushed over and hugged him tightly. "You did it, Marcus. You saved all of us." Elena joined the embrace, and for a moment, the 3 of them stood together in their beautiful new home, surrounded by the evidence of how one moment of courage could change not just their lives, but the lives of countless others. Outside, the street of luxury cars gleamed in the morning sun like a parade of possibilities. Marcus had shielded a CEO from kidnappers, expecting nothing in return. In response, that CEO had shielded an entire family from poverty, despair, and limited dreams. Sometimes, Marcus thought as he watched his mother and sister planning how to use their new resources to help others. The most powerful force in the world isn't money or influence or connections. Sometimes it's simply someone who chooses to do the right thing, even when no one is watching and no reward is expected. The luxury cars would eventually drive away, but their meaning would remain forever. A reminder that in a world that often seems driven by selfishness and greed, there are still people who understand that the greatest wealth comes from lifting others up.